The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It had turned a sickly shade of orange, glowing ominously as if the planet itself were on fire. Massive ships, each one larger than a city, descended from space like dark clouds blotting out the sun. Their metallic surfaces shimmered with an eerie light, reflecting the chaos unfolding below. Explosions erupted across the horizon, shaking the ground and sending shockwaves through the air. Buildings crumbled into dust, and screams filled the streets as people ran for their lives. No one saw it coming. Humanity had been warned about alien threats before, but nothing like this. These invaders weren't just another species seeking resources or territory. They were conquerors, ruthless, unstoppable, and merciless. They called themselves the Vorn, and they left destruction in their wake wherever they went. Entire planets had fallen under their might, reduced to lifeless husks floating silently in the void of space. Now it was Earth's turn. In a small cabin nestled deep within the dense forests of northern Canada, Alex sat alone by the window, staring at the distant glow on the horizon. He didn't need anyone to tell them what was happening. He could feel it in his bones. The rumble of explosions reached even here, faint but unmistakable. For years, he'd tried to escape the memories that haunted him, the faces of those he couldn't save during humanity's last stand against another alien invasion. But now, there was no running from the truth. The war had come back to Earth, and it wasn't going to stop until everything was gone. Alex wasn't the same man he used to be. Once a brilliant strategist in the military, he had risen quickly through the ranks, earning respect and admiration from his peers. But after losing his wife and daughter when a failed defense plan left their city exposed to enemy fire, he walked away from it all. He blamed himself for not being good enough, smart enough, fast enough. And so, he retreated to this remote corner of the world, living off the land and avoiding contact with others. But today, something felt different. As the sky burned brighter and the sounds of destruction grew louder, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that fate was calling him back. Maybe it was guilt gnawing at him again, reminding him of the lives he'd failed to protect. Or maybe it was something else, some stubborn spark of hope refusing to die inside him. Whatever it was, he knew he couldn't sit idly by while the world burned around him. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden knock at the door. Startled, Alex grabbed the rifle leaning against the wall and approached cautiously. No one ever came to visit him here, not anymore. When he opened the door, he found a young soldier standing outside, clutching a tablet device in trembling hands. The uniform was torn, and dirt streaked the young man's face, but his eyes held a desperate urgency. "Sir, General Hayes sent me," the soldier panted, holding out the tablet. "He says we need you." Alex hesitated, then took the device and pressed play on the recorded message. A familiar voice crackled to life, a voice he hadn't heard in years. "Alex, I know you don't want anything to do with this anymore. Hell, neither do I. But we're out of options. If anyone can figure out how to beat these bastards, it's you. We need your help. Please, come to Chicago. There's still time." The screen went black, leaving Alex frozen in place. His mind raced with conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to throw the tablet into the fire and go back to ignoring the world. But another part, a part he thought he buried long ago, felt the stirrings of purpose returning. Could he really make a difference, or would stepping back into the fight only lead to more failure, more pain? Before he could decide, the soldier spoke again. "Sir, time's running out. The Vorn are already halfway through North America. If we don't act soon..." He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Alex sighed heavily, running a hand through his graying hair. "All right," he said finally. "Give me 10 minutes to pack." Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, beneath the ruins of Chicago, a young engineer named Mia worked frantically in a dimly lit underground lab. Her fingers flew over a holographic keyboard, adjusting calculations and rerouting power systems. Around her, other scientists and technicians moved with equal urgency, their faces pale with exhaustion and fear. The room smelled of burnt wiring and sweat, and the constant hum of machinery made it hard to think clearly. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was finishing the project before it was too late. Mia's project was unlike anything humanity had ever attempted. Using scraps salvaged from old warships and experimental technologies scavenged from previous alien encounters, she had designed a fleet of prototype vessels equipped with EMP cannons. These weapons wouldn't destroy the Vorn ships outright, but they would disable them temporarily, giving humanity a fighting chance. At least, that was the theory. So far, the tests had been promising, but there hadn't been time for proper field trials. Every day, the pressure mounted to deploy the ships before the Vorn wiped them out entirely. As she worked, Mia glanced up at the monitors displaying live footage of the invasion. Flames engulfed entire neighborhoods, and columns of smoke rose like funeral pyres. She clenched her fists, forcing herself to focus. Crying wouldn't help anyone. Action would. That was why she was here, to give people a chance to fight back. Suddenly, the door burst open, and a harried-looking officer rushed in. "We've got incoming," he shouted. "Vorn scouts spotted heading this way. You need to evacuate immediately." Mia shook her head firmly. "Not yet. I'm almost done with the final calibration. Just a few more minutes." "But no arguments," she snapped, her voice sharp with determination. "If we lose these ships, we lose everything. Now get out of my way." The officer hesitated, then nodded reluctantly and hurried off to coordinate defenses elsewhere. Alone once more, Mia bent over her workbench, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know if she believed in heroes or miracles anymore. All she knew was that someone had to try. And if no one else would step up, then it would have to be her. Hours later, Alex arrived at the hidden base beneath Chicago, escorted by the young soldier who had delivered the message. The journey had been perilous, navigating through abandoned highways littered with wreckage and dodging patrols of Vorn drones. More than once, Alex had wondered if he'd made a mistake coming back. But now, as he stepped into the bustling underground facility, he realized he hadn't. This was where he belonged, at least for now. General Hayes greeted him warmly, though the lines of stress etched into his face betrayed the gravity of the situation. "I wasn't sure you'd show," the general admitted, clasping Alex's shoulder. "I wasn't sure either." Alex replied grimly. "What's the plan?" Hayes led him to a large map projected onto a wall, showing the extent of the Vorn invasion. Red markers covered most of the continent, with only a few scattered green dots representing human resistance forces. "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of time," Hayes explained. "But thanks to Mia and her team, we might have a shot. Those prototype ships of hers could level the playing field, if we use them right." Alex nodded slowly, studying the map. "How many ships do we have?" "5 fully operational prototypes," Hayes answered. "And barely enough pilots to fly them." "That's not enough," Alex muttered. "We'll need more than just brute force. We need strategy." Hayes smiled faintly. "That's why we need you. Alex, you always were the best at thinking 3 steps ahead." For the first time in years, Alex felt a flicker of confidence return. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start. Turning to the general, he asked, "Where's Maya?" "She's in Lab C," Hayes replied. "She's been working nonstop since the invasion began. Be gentle with her. She's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders." Alex headed toward the lab, his mind already racing with ideas. He didn't know if they could win this war, but he did know one thing. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight. The underground base beneath the ruins of Chicago was a hive of activity, buzzing with desperation and determination. Dim fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across makeshift workstations where engineers and technicians worked tirelessly. The air smelled of sweat, oil, and burnt metal, a constant reminder of how close humanity was to collapse. Despite the chaos, there was an unspoken sense of purpose driving everyone forward, Every person here knew that failure wasn't an option. Alex stood at the entrance to Lab C, watching as Mia moved between consoles, her hands flying over holographic interfaces while she barked orders to her team. She barely seemed to notice him at first, so focused was she on fine-tuning the last of the prototype ships. When one of her assistants finally pointed him out, Maya turned toward Alex with a mix of curiosity and skepticism in her sharp green eyes. "You're Alex?" she asked bluntly, wiping grease-stained fingers on her overalls. "General Hayes said you'd be helping us." "That's right," Alex replied evenly. "I hear you've got something special for me to use." Mia crossed her arms, studying him carefully. "Special? Maybe. Reliable? Not so much. These ships are prototypes, half built from scraps and half designed by guesswork. If we screw up even a little, they'll blow up in our faces. I'm used to working with less than perfect tools," Alex said, his tone calm but firm. "Show me what you've got." Mia hesitated for a moment, then nodded and led him deeper into the lab. There, parked in a cavernous hangar, were 5 sleek spacecraft unlike anything Alex had ever seen. They were smaller than standard military vessels, built for speed and agility rather than brute force. Each ship bristled with experimental weaponry, including the EMP cannons Mia had mentioned earlier. But it wasn't just their design that caught Alex's attention. It was the sheer ingenuity behind them. Whoever had put these together wasn't thinking about rules or limitations. They were thinking about survival. "These aren't meant for direct combat," Mia explained as they approached the nearest ship. "They're hit-and-run machines. Get in, disable the enemy, get out. Anything more than that, and you're dead." Alex ran a hand along the smooth surface of the ship, feeling its cool metal under his palm. "How many pilots do we have?" "5, Maya answered without hesitation. "1 for each ship, and none of them are exactly battle-tested." "That's not good enough," Alex muttered. "We need backup plans, redundancies. A single mistake could cost us everything." Mia frowned, clearly irritated. "You think I don't know that? We're doing the best we can with what we've got." "I didn't say you weren't," Alex shot back. "But best isn't going to cut it if we want to win this fight. Who else is available?" Mia sighed and gestured for him to follow her to a nearby conference room. Inside, a group of ragtag volunteers sat around a scared wooden table, looking equal parts nervous and determined. Alex scanned their faces quickly, taking note of their expressions and body language. Some looked eager, others terrified, but all of them shared the same grim resolve. "This is Jake," Mia began, pointing to a young man with messy blonde hair and a cocky grin. "Best pilot we've got, though he doesn't always play well with others." Jake leaned back in his chair, twirling a pen between his fingers. Yeah. Save the introductions. Just tell me when I get to fly." Ignoring him, Mia continued. "Next to him is Leela. She's a medic, but she's also trained in basic piloting. She'll keep everyone patched up and alive." Leela nodded politely, her dark ponytail bobbing as she adjusted the medical kit slung over her shoulder. Unlike Jake, she radiated quiet confidence, her steady gaze meeting Alex without hesitation. "And this is Tom," Maya finished, motioning to a burly man in his late 40s whose calloused hands were covered in grease stains. "He's the mechanic who keeps these ships flying. Without him, we'd be screwed." Tom grunted in acknowledgement, barely glancing up from the schematic he was sketching on a notepad. "Nice to meet ya," he mumbled before returning to his work. Alex studied the group silently for a moment, weighing their strengths and weaknesses. It wasn't much to work with, but it was all they had. Turning to Mia, he asked, "Are there any more people down here who might be able to help?" "A few," Mia admitted reluctantly, "but most of them are either too inexperienced or too scared to step foot in a cockpit." "We don't have time to coddle anyone," Alex said firmly. "Bring me whoever's willing to try. Even if they're not ready now, they will be soon." Over the next several days, Alex threw himself into training the volunteers, pushing them harder than he thought possible. He started with the basics: flight maneuvers, weapon systems, communication protocols, but quickly escalated to high-stress simulations designed to test their limits. Jake proved to be reckless but talented, excelling in dogfights but struggling to follow orders. Lila surprised everyone with her natural aptitude for multitasking, calmly navigating complex scenarios while simultaneously tending to simulated injuries. Tom, despite his reluctance to leave the hangar, demonstrated an uncanny ability to troubleshoot problems mid-flight, earning Alex's reluctant respect. As the hours stretched into days, tensions flared within the group. Jake grew increasingly frustrated with Alex's strict discipline, often snapping during debriefings. "Why does everything have to be your way?" he demanded one evening after a particularly grueling exercise. "Maybe if you let us do things our own way, we'd actually stand a chance." Alex stared at him coldly. "Your way got you killed in that simulation. Would you rather learn the hard way out there?" He gestured toward the ceiling, implying the battlefield above. "Because trust me, the Vorn won't give you a second chance." Jake opened his mouth to argue further, but Leela intervened, placing a calming hand on his arm. "He's right, Jake," she said softly. "We can't afford to make mistakes. Not against them." For once, Jake didn't argue. Instead, he clenched his jaw and stormed off, leaving the others in tense silence. Alex watched him go, feeling a pang of guilt but knowing he couldn't afford to soften his approach. Time was running out, and every wasted moment brought the Vorn closer to victory. Despite the friction, progress was being made. Under Mia's guidance, the ships underwent final adjustments, their systems optimized for maximum efficiency. Meanwhile, Alex devised a daring plan, a coordinated strike aimed at disabling key sections of the Vorn fleet, using stolen coordinates provided by a defector, a captured Vorn drone reprogrammed by Mia. They would infiltrate the heart of the enemy Armada and strike where it hurt most. But even as preparations neared completion, doubts lingered in Alex's mind. Could this ragtag team really pull off such a risky mission? Were they truly ready to face an enemy as powerful as the Vorn? As he walked through the corridors of the underground base late one night, these questions weighed heavily on him. In the main hangar, he found Mia sitting alone beside one of the ships, staring at its sleek form with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Hearing his footsteps, she glanced up and offered a weak smile. "Can't sleep. Too much on my mind," Alex admitted, leaning against a nearby workstation. "What about you?" Mia shrugged. "Same. I keep thinking about what happens if this doesn't work, if we fail." "We won't," Alex interrupted firmly. "Failure isn't an option." "It's easy to say that," Mia countered, her voice tinged with bitterness. "But saying it doesn't make it true. What if we're wrong? What if these ships aren't enough?" Alex knelt beside her, meeting her gaze squarely. "Then we die trying. Because the alternative is letting them win. And I refuse to let that happen." Mia stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, let's finish this." Together, they returned to work, pouring every ounce of energy into preparing for the coming battle. Though fear still lingered in the corners of their minds, it was overshadowed by something stronger: hope. Hope that they could turn the tide. Hope that humanity still had a fighting chance. And as dawn broke over the ruined city above, painting the sky with streaks of fiery orange, Alex felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about revenge or redemption anymore. It was about proving to themselves, to the Vorn, to the entire universe, that Earth would never surrender. The moment had finally come. The underground base was a flurry of activity as the Ragtag squadron prepared for their first, and possibly last, mission against the Vorn. Engineers double-checked every bolt and circuit on the prototype ships, while mechanics like Tom worked tirelessly to ensure the EMP cannons were primed and ready. In the hangar, Alex paced between the sleek vessels, inspecting each one with a critical eye. He didn't need anyone telling him how high the stakes were. He could see it in the faces of his crew. Jake stood near his assigned ship, fiddling nervously with his helmet. For once, his usual cockiness was replaced by quiet apprehension. Lila sat cross-legged on the floor nearby, reviewing emergency protocols on a tablet device, her calm demeanor masking the storm of emotions brewing inside her. Even Mia, who rarely showed weakness, looked pale as she gave final instructions to the tech team. Everyone knew what they were walking into. A suicide mission disguised as a desperate gamble. Alex gathered the group for a quick briefing before launch. "Listen up," he began, his voice steady but firm. "This isn't going to be easy. The Vorn are bigger, faster, and better equipped than us. But we have something they don't. Surprise. We hit them hard, fast, and then get out before they can retaliate. Stick to the plan, follow orders, and trust each other. If we do that, we might just stand a chance." No one spoke. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air, punctuated only by the distant rumble of explosions above ground. Finally, Jake broke the silence. "What happens if things go south? You know, if someone doesn't make it back?" Alex met his gaze without flinching. "Then we honor them by finishing the job. No heroics. No breaking formation. Just focus on the mission." With that, the team dispersed to their respective ships. Alex climbed into the cockpit of the lead vessel, running through pre-flight checks as adrenaline coursed through his veins. Over the comm system, he heard Mia's voice crackle to life. "All systems are green. Ready when you are, Alex." "Copy that," Alex replied. "Let's move out." The 5 ships launched simultaneously, emerging from hidden tunnels beneath the city and soaring into the chaos-filled skies above. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Vorn fleet loomed overhead like an impenetrable wall of steel and fire, its massive dreadnoughts blotting out the sun. Smaller fighter craft zipped through the air, raining destruction on whatever remained of Earth's defenses. The humans' arrival went unnoticed at first, their tiny ships blending into the debris-filled atmosphere. As they approached the enemy fleet, Alex kept his voice low but commanding over the comms. "Stay close and maintain radio silence until I give the signal. Remember, we're not here to fight. We're here to disable." The squadron slipped through narrow gaps between the colossal Vorn vessels, dodging stray blasts and swarms of drones. It was like navigating a minefield, every second fraught with danger. Jake's impatience started to show as he veered slightly off course, narrowly avoiding collision with a piece of floating wreckage. "Stick to the plan," Alex barked sharply. "Got it, boss," Jake muttered, though his tone suggested otherwise. Finally, they reached their target, a cluster of command ships linked together by energy conduits. These conduits acted as the nervous system of the Vorn fleet, transmitting orders and powering their advanced weaponry. Disabling them would cripple the invaders' coordination, leaving them vulnerable to further attacks, if humanity managed to survive long enough to capitalize on it. "Mia, now's your moment," Alex said into the comms. "Fire the EMP cannons." From each ship, beams of pulsating blue energy shot toward the conduits, striking with pinpoint accuracy. The effect was immediate and devastating. Lights flickered across the Vorn fleet as entire sections powered down, sending waves of confusion rippling through their ranks. Drones plummeted from the sky, and larger ships drifted aimlessly, their systems temporarily fried. But the victory was short-lived. Alarms blared across the human squadron's comms as Vorn fighters locked onto their position. "We've been spotted," Leela shouted, her voice tinged with panic. "They're coming in hot." "Stay calm," Alex ordered. "Break formation and scatter. Regroup at the rendezvous point." The squadron split apart, weaving through the labyrinth of disabled ships as enemy fire rained down around them. Jake dove into a steep spiral, narrowly avoiding a barrage of plasma bolts. "These guys don't mess around," he yelled, his earlier bravado returning in full force. Meanwhile, Tom's ship took a direct hit, sending sparks flying in the cockpit. Engines failing. He grunted, struggling to keep control. I'm losing altitude. Tom, eject if you have to. Mia urged, her voice cracking with worry. No way, Tom growled. I didn't spend weeks fixing these damn things just to bail now. Hold on, I'll catch up. Despite the damage, Tom managed to stabilize his ship and limp toward the others. But the cost of their daring maneuver became painfully clear moments later when a bright flash lit up the horizon. One of the prototype ships exploded in a fiery ball of flames, taking its pilot with it. No one spoke as the realization sank in. They'd lost one of their own. Back in his cockpit, Alex clenched his jaw tightly, forcing himself to stay focused. There would be time to mourn later. For now, they had a mission to complete. Regroup and prepare for extraction, he commanded. We've done enough damage for today. Let's get out of here. Retreating wasn't easy. The Vorn pursued relentlessly, their superior numbers making escape nearly impossible. Alex led the remaining ships through a series of evasive maneuvers, using the cover of drifting debris to mask their movements. At one point, Jake sacrificed his position to draw enemy fire away from Leela, who was struggling to keep pace due to minor hull damage. You owe me big time for this, Jake quipped over the comms, his grin audible despite the tension. Just shut up and fly. Alex snapped, though there was a hint of gratitude in his tone. Finally, after what felt like hours, the squadron reached the designated rendezvous point, a remote canyon far from the main battlefield. Exhausted and battered, they landed their ships in a hidden cave, where General Hayes and a small contingent of soldiers awaited their return. As Alex stepped out of his cockpit, he was greeted by the somber faces of those who had stayed behind. The loss of their comrade weighed heavily on everyone, but there was also a glimmer of hope. They had struck a blow against the Vorn. A small one, perhaps, but significant nonetheless. General Hayes approached Alex, placing a hand on his shoulder. You did good out there. Better than anyone expected. It's not enough. Alex replied grimly. Not yet. Hayes nodded in agreement. No, it's not. But it's a start, and sometimes that's all we need. Behind them, Mia stared at the charred remains of the fallen ship, tears streaming silently down her face. She had poured her heart and soul into building those prototypes, believing they could turn the tide. Now, faced with the harsh reality of war, she wondered if her efforts had been worth it. Alex noticed her distress and walked over, speaking softly so only she could hear. We couldn't have saved everyone. That's not why we fight. We fight because giving up means letting them win. And I refuse to let that happen. Mia wiped her eyes and nodded, determination slowly replacing despair. Then let's make sure this wasn't in vain. As the survivors regrouped and began repairs on the damaged ships, Alex allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. They had proven that humanity could still strike back, even against overwhelming odds. But the battle was far from over. The Vorn wouldn't rest until Earth was nothing more than ash, and neither would he. For now, though, they had earned a reprieve, a chance to regroup, refuel, and prepare for the next phase of the fight. Whatever came next, Alex vowed silently, they would face it together. The aftermath of the first strike left the underground base in a state of cautious optimism mixed with grim resolve. While the mission had succeeded in disabling a critical section of the Vorn fleet, the cost was etched deeply into everyone's minds. The loss of one of their own, a young pilot named Ryan, was a stark reminder that this war would demand sacrifices far greater than anyone had anticipated. Yet, amidst the grief, there was also pride. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had struck back and inflicted real damage. Alex stood at the center of the command room, poring over maps and schematics laid out on a holographic table. His expression was unreadable, but his clenched fists betrayed the turmoil within him. He replayed the events of the mission in his head repeatedly, analyzing every decision, every move, searching for ways to improve their chances next time. Beside him, Mia worked tirelessly alongside her team, repairing the damaged ships and fine-tuning the EMP cannons. Her hands moved mechanically, but her eyes were distant, haunted by memories of Ryan's final moments. General Hayes entered the room, his face lined with exhaustion. "We've got reports coming in from other resistance cells," he said, laying down a stack of data pads. "They're inspired by what you did. Some are planning coordinated attacks against smaller Vorn patrols." "That's good news," Alex replied without looking up. "But inspiration isn't enough. Without resources or proper training, they'll get slaughtered." Hayes nodded gravely. "Agreed, which is why we need to act fast. Intelligence suggests the Vorn are already regrouping. And worse, they're deploying reinforcements." Mia looked up sharply. "Reinforcements? How many?" "Enough to finish us off if we don't stop them now," Hayes admitted. "Their superweapon, the planet-cracking laser, is almost operational. If it fires, Earth won't stand a chance." The weight of those words settled heavily over the room. Everyone knew what was at stake. Failure wasn't just an option. It was inevitable, unless they did something drastic. Alex straightened, his mind racing through possibilities. There was only one way to stop the Vorn: destroy the orbital platform housing the superweapon before it could fire. But getting close enough to do so would require diverting the enemy's attention, and sacrificing someone willing to take the fall. "I'll lead the charge," Alex announced suddenly, breaking the silence. "Use me as bait to draw the Vorn commander into a trap." "What?" Mia exclaimed, stepping forward. "That's insane. You'll be killed." "It's not about me," Alex said firmly. "It's about buying you enough time to disable the weapon. I can keep the Vorn busy while you sneak onto the platform and finish the job." "No," Jake interjected, storming into the room. "You're the reason we've gotten this far. If anyone goes, it should be me. And get yourself blown up 5 minutes in." Alex shot back. "This isn't a democracy, Jake. It's my call." Jake opened his mouth to argue further, but Leela placed a restraining hand on his arm. "He's right," she said quietly. "As much as we hate it, Alex is the best person for this. We have to trust him." For once, Jake didn't respond. Instead, he turned away, his jaw clenched tightly. Tom, who had been quietly observing the exchange, stepped forward. "If you're really doing this, then let me prep your ship. I'll make sure it holds together long enough for you to pull it off." Alex nodded gratefully. "Thanks, Tom. And Mia?" He hesitated, meeting her gaze. "You're in charge after I'm gone. Finish what we started." Mia stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. "Don't say it like that. Like you're already dead." "It's just planning for the worst," Alex said softly. "I need you to promise me you'll see this through." After a long pause, Mia nodded. "I promise." Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the resistance, betrayal was brewing closer to home. In a secure communications chamber deep within the base, a senior advisor to General Hayes paced nervously. His name was Carter, and though he had served faithfully for years, fear had taken hold of him. The destruction wrought by the Vorn had shattered his faith in humanity's ability to win. Desperation clouded his judgment, leading him to make a deal with the enemy, a deal he hoped would save his life. Carter activated a hidden transmitter, sending encrypted coordinates of the underground base to the Vorn fleet. Within minutes, confirmation came back. The invaders would launch a full-scale assault within hours. As the transmission ended, Carter slumped against the wall, guilt gnawing at him. He told himself it was necessary, that surrendering now would spare countless lives. But deep down, he knew he had crossed a line he could never come back from. Back in the main hangar, preparations for the final mission were underway. Alex reviewed the plan one last time with his team, ensuring every detail was accounted for. "Jake, you'll stay behind to protect the base," he instructed. "Leela, coordinate medical support for anyone injured during the attack. Tom, Keep the ships running no matter what. And Mia?" He paused, locking eyes with her. "You know what you have to do." She nodded, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. "I won't let you down." As Alex climbed into the cockpit of his ship, the others gathered around to bid him farewell. Jake extended a hesitant hand, which Alex shook firmly. "Good luck, boss," Jake muttered, his usual bravado replaced by genuine respect. "Take care of them," Alex replied. Then, turning to Mia, he added, "Remember what I said. Trust yourself." With that, the engines roared to life, and Alex's ship lifted off, disappearing into the night sky. Behind him, the remaining squadron prepared to follow, their hearts heavy but resolute. High above Earth, Alex engaged the Vorn flagship in a daring dogfight, drawing the enemy commander's attention. His ship darted through clouds of debris, narrowly avoiding plasma bolts and missile strikes. Each maneuver brought him closer to the heart of the Vorn fleet, where the commander awaited aboard the massive dreadnought. In the meantime, Mia and the others slipped past the chaos, making their way toward the orbital platform. The journey was fraught with danger, as swarms of Vorn drones patrolled the area. At one point, Leela patched up a wounded crew member mid-flight, her hands steady despite the turbulence. Tom worked miracles in the engine bay, keeping their aging ships airborne despite crippling damage. Finally, they reached the platform. Docking stealthily, Mia led the infiltration team through dimly lit corridors, avoiding patrols of Vorn soldiers. The tension was palpable as they neared the control room, knowing that failure here meant certain doom for Earth. When they arrived, they found the horrifying truth. The superweapon required a living host to activate fully. A captured human scientist, brainwashed by the Vorn, stood ready to complete the process. In a climactic showdown, Mia confronted the scientist, pleading with whatever shred of humanity remained inside him. After a tense struggle, she managed to free him and overload the system, causing the entire platform to explode in a blinding flash of light. Far away, Alex fought valiantly against overwhelming odds. His ship sustained critical damage, flames engulfing the cockpit as alarms screamed in his ears. Through the chaos, he transmitted one final message to Mia. "Tell them, we fought like never before." Then, with a deafening roar, his ship disintegrated in a fiery blaze, taking the Vorn commander with it. Back on Earth, the Resistance watched as the Vorn fleet retreated into deep space, leaderless and demoralized. Though victory came at a terrible cost, humanity had proven it would never surrender, not to despair, not to tyranny, and certainly not to those who thought they couldn't be stopped. And as Mia gazed at the horizon, tears streaming down her face, she whispered a silent vow. "We'll honor you, Alex, until our dying breath." The explosion of the orbital platform lit up the night sky like a second sun, its fiery brilliance casting shadows across the ruined landscape below. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the entire planet held its breath, watching in awe as the Vorn's superweapon, their ultimate tool of destruction, was reduced to molten debris. The shockwave rippled outward, shaking the ground beneath Mia's feet as she stood on the edge of the underground base, staring at the horizon. Her face was streaked with tears, but her eyes burned with determination. Alex had given everything to ensure their success, and now it was her responsibility to carry the torch forward. Behind her, the surviving members of the squadron gathered silently, their expressions a mix of grief and triumph. Jake leaned against a crumbling wall, his usual cockiness replaced by quiet reflection. Lila tended to minor injuries among the team, her hands steady despite the emotional toll. Tom worked methodically on the damaged ships, refusing to let exhaustion slow him down. General Hayes approached Mia, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said softly. "Alex would be proud." Mia nodded, swallowing hard. "We all did it. But at what cost?" Hayes didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the burning sky, where remnants of the Vorn fleet were retreating into the darkness of space. Their massive dreadnoughts moved sluggishly, leaderless, and disorganized. Without their commander and with their superweapon destroyed, they no longer posed an immediate threat. But that didn't mean humanity was safe. Not yet. "We've bought ourselves time," Hayes said finally. "Time to rebuild, regroup, and prepare for whatever comes next. That's more than we had yesterday." In the days that followed, the resistance began the painstaking process of recovery. Civilians who had hidden in bunkers and abandoned shelters emerged cautiously, surveying the devastation wrought by the Vorn invasion. Entire cities lay in ruins, their once bustling streets now eerily silent. Yet amidst the rubble, there were signs of resilience. Volunteers worked tirelessly to clear debris, search for survivors, and distribute supplies salvaged from military stockpiles. The spirit of humanity, broken but unyielding, shone through every act of kindness and solidarity. At the underground base, Mia took charge of coordinating efforts to fortify Earth's defenses. Using the data collected during their missions, she led a team of engineers in designing new weapon systems capable of countering future alien threats. Her prototype ships became the foundation for a renewed Earth fleet, each vessel bearing Alex's name in tribute to his sacrifice. But Mia knew that rebuilding wasn't just about technology or strategy. It was about hope. She organized broadcasts across surviving communication networks, delivering messages of encouragement to those struggling to pick up the pieces. "We lost so much," she told them over crackling speakers. "But we also gained something precious. Proof that we can fight back. Proof that we are stronger together." Her words resonated deeply, sparking the wave of unity among the scattered remnants of humanity. People banded together, forming communities and sharing resources. Even in the darkest corners of the world, small acts of defiance against despair began to take root. Meanwhile, Jake found himself grappling with a newfound sense of purpose. After years of reckless bravado, he realized that true courage wasn't about seeking glory. It was about standing beside others when it mattered most. He threw himself into training new pilots, teaching them the skills he learned during the battle against the Vorn. Though he still cracked jokes to lighten the mood, there was a maturity in his demeanor that hadn't been there before. Leela, too, discovered strength she hadn't known she possessed. As a medic, she had always focused on healing wounds, both physical and emotional. Now she expanded her role, organizing support groups for survivors dealing with trauma. Her calm presence and unwavering compassion became a beacon of stability in a world teetering on the brink of collapse. Tom continued to pour his heart into maintaining the fleet, often working late into the night to keep the ships operational. When asked why he pushed himself so hard, he simply replied, "Because someone has to." His dedication inspired others to contribute in their own ways, whether it was repairing machinery, growing food, or caring for children orphaned by the war. As weeks turned into months, reports began trickling in from other parts of the globe. Resistance cells that had been inspired by the initial strike against the Vorn were now stepping up their efforts, launching coordinated attacks on smaller alien outposts. Slowly but surely, humanity was reclaiming its territory. Yet even as progress was made, the specter of betrayal loomed over the resistance. Carter, the advisor who had leaked the base's location to the Vorn, lived in constant fear of discovery. Guilt consumed him, eating away at his resolve until he could no longer bear it. One evening, unable to face the consequences of his actions, he disappeared into the wilderness, leaving behind only a note confessing his crime. When the note reached General Hayes, he read it aloud to the Leadership Council. "Carter made a terrible mistake," Hayes admitted, "but punishing him won't undo the harm he caused. Instead, let this serve as a reminder of what happens when fear overrides faith in ourselves, in each other, and in our ability to overcome even the greatest odds." The council agreed, choosing to focus on moving forward rather than dwelling on past failures. It was a decision that embodied the spirit of resilience defining humanity's struggle. On the anniversary of the orbital platform's destruction, the Resistance held a solemn ceremony to honor those who had fallen. A memorial was erected near the underground base, inscribed with the names of every individual who had sacrificed their lives in the fight against the Vorn. At the center of the monument stood a statue of Alex, arms raised as if leading a charge into battle. Mia delivered the closing remarks, her voice strong and clear despite the lump in her throat. Today, we remember not just those we lost, but what they taught us, that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the will to act in spite of it. That unity is our greatest weapon. And that hope, no matter how fragile, can light the way even in the darkest times. As the crowd dispersed, she lingered by the statue, running her fingers over the inscription etched into its base. They thought no one could stop them, until Earth's most fearsome armada struck without mercy. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine Alex standing beside her, nodding in approval. Then, steeling herself for the challenges ahead, she turned and walked back toward the base. There was still work to be done, and humanity had proven it wouldn't rest until the job was finished. Above, the stars twinkled faintly in the night sky, silent witnesses to a planet reborn. The scars of war would never fully heal, but neither would they define Earth's future. Humanity had faced extinction and refused to bow. And as long as that spirit endured, the Vorn, or any other force that dared threaten them, would find themselves facing an unstoppable foe.